All right, so I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving break. We're back for essentially the last 2 weeks of class. So we don't have a lot of time left. A lot of modeling still left to do. I'm going to concentrate for our purposes in the next several lectures, continuing getting line drawings out of Rhino, and so that you can get good quality plan sections, elevations, etc. So we've already done the elevations, and like I said last week when we did the elevation, I would repeat myself going through the other drawings so that you got practice going through them. You should be pretty wrapped up with your design at this point, and so the things that you're creating today, i.e. the floor plan, could be the one that you use as part of your final project. So the hope is that this is not redundant work, it's final work. And certainly that'll make your life a little bit easier. This builds on a lot of the same skills that we've been doing. I'm going to use the Section Tools plugin like I did previously to cut a section through the building. This time I'm actually going to be looking down as a plan. But in the process of doing that, we'll review all the Section Tools stuff. So you'll see this over and over again. So I do have my master site open. Before I start working with this, because I'm going to use the Section Tools and I'm going to end up slicing through my building, I did do a save as so that I have a file that I can destroy. So I took my drawing, I did a save as, and now I can actually work through it. So I'll keep working with my section. So, sorry a second. Sorry, I got to get back into Rhino mode instead of SketchUp mode. Okay, so here, this mouse is, okay. I cannot rotate without right-clicking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut my section through the building. It's going to drive me nuts all day. And I think I'm going to try to hit the second floor so that I can see the, let's call it the kitchen area. It doesn't really have anything in it, but this room and this room. If I did the first floor, I'd see just this room with the stairs. So I think I'm going to see a little bit more if I'm up a little bit. So before I get too far into this, we'll go ahead and hide the ocean. I could also go into my layers and I could just turn the ocean off so that that's gone and I'm not worried about it. And then I'll look at this in the top view for a second and I'll draw a big plane that's larger than my building. So we'll go ahead and do a rectangular plane corner to corner, larger than everything, something like that. Once that's installed, we'll move back to this view. And then I may want to move it vertically. There's my plane. And as we start to move it up, it will cut through my building at some point. It may be actually easier to do it, the move, in one of the side views. So here we are in the side view. I don't have to move vertically anymore, but now I have a little bit finer control over where this is going to cut through the plan here. So typically, we're cutting through about 4 feet above the floor. I'm going to pick this so that I just barely get this room, but I also get this room. Okay, so I'm trying to find the strategic place to have this happen. And you can see that that plane is cutting through the building there in my exterior view 2 right now. Okay, so now that I have this set up and I have my plane set up, and we can kind of see it in these two views, I'm going to take a look at what the section looks like. So again, I'm going to use the Section Tools plugin. If for some reason it's not there, you can go back and install it temporarily or install it for just your user without the admin password. So it's not too bad, but you have to go through that installation process again. Once I have it, I'm going to do Section Tools Create, or ST Create. I'm going to select my objects to section. It's going to be all, but I'm going to hold down Control and deselect that big plane because I don't want that. And we'll go ahead and hit Enter. And then we're going to go through and check my options. So under my solid mode, I want it to be surfaces. Okay, we don't need the rest of this. That's fine. And my direction is the x-axis, which is fine. The difference here is that instead of doing it in the perspective view or in the top view, I'm going to be doing it in the front view. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit Enter. I'm going to make sure that I'm in the front view, and you see how now my arrows are pointing down in this view? That's what I want. So we'll go ahead with them pointing down in this view. will snap to one of the corners of my plane here, and it will then create the ST00 for me. Okay, so that's called ST00. We see what I've cut through right there. It looks like I cut through, my windows and my walls and that sort of thing. Okay, now that that's done, and it just repeated that for me, there we go. I'm going to go to Section Tools and then View. I'll pick a list. I'll pick ST00. I'll say OK. What viewport to enable it in? I'm going to start with Exterior View 02, which will let us see it here. And now we can look down into our building a little bit and say, yes, it did slice it approximately where I wanted it to be sliced. I'm seeing the stairs. I'm looking down into the building. OK, this seems like it's doing pretty well. Okay, so now it's a matter of actually setting up a true plan view. So we could look at it in the top view, something like that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show this as shaded mode. And then I'll type STView, STView sections. And I want to see ST00. And I want to show it in the top view. So there it is. This big plane that I drew really should be on its own layer. So let's create a new layer called Plan. Let me get it out of being nested. There it is at the bottom. Underneath, we'll put ST00. Underneath Plan, I'll create a new sublayer for Plane. And we'll change the object onto that layer, which will allow me to turn that off and actually see down into my building. So there it is in the top view where I'm seeing the section. I'm going to go ahead and rename this. So I'll go to Set View, Named Views, and I'm going to name this view Plan. And I probably should say Plan 02 because it's the second floor. And I'll go ahead and say OK. And now that's a view that I can come back to over and over again as I start to work with this. OK, so let's take a look at what is on the ST00 layer. Let me unlock it, and let me select the objects that are on that layer. Okay, it gave me a bunch of curves, but not too much else. So I'm going to have to do some cleanup and essentially filling in of what I've cut through. All right, and let me go ahead and let me view this in ghosted mode for just a second so we can see. All right, so I'm going to have to fill in a little bit. So we'll be on the ST00 layer, and I'll use my planes to fill in with surfaces. Let me show this. This might help if I showed it in shaded mode so you can see it. There's the surface. I'm going to continue with my rectangular plane, I hope. And we'll work our way down this side. There. There. Nope. I'll probably need 3 or 4 corner points. I have this one little funny wall because this slopes back in like that. And let's use this. Sorry, mistaken click there. Go. giving me lots of funny snaps right now. There we go. And again, the whole reason I'm doing this is so that when I render, the walls will be solid. All right, and we have one more. Little tiny piece right there. All right, so now all of those are filled in, and they're on the ST00 layer, so I can assign the ST00 layer black or gray or something like that. That'll fill it in. So if you remember before, it was relatively easy once I got to this stage to create the two-dimensional line drawing using the make 2D command. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Let me go back and go to Set View, Plan 2. So I'm at the zoomed in level of Plan 2. And then I'm going to use Make 2D as my command. Select Objects to Draw. It's going to be All. And the Make 2D is working right now because I have the section view enabled. So Make 2D and the section tools view both work together. So because I have it set up like this, the Make 2D of this view is going to show me this exact thing. So I have Make 2D, select objects, all. I'll press Enter when I'm done. And it asks me to go through the same set. So this is the current view. I want to show hidden lines. Right? I can choose to maintain source layers or not. This time I'm going to go ahead and check the box for maintain source layers because I want you to see. Last class I did the elevation views without it. This class I'll do it with it so you can see the difference. Okay? So I'm going to show hidden lines. I'm going to maintain the source layers. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now remember last time this took a while. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Save, and make sure I can come back to this in case it crashes. And then I will do the Make 2D. All. Press Enter when done. I'm going to maintain my source layers. The rest of this is all fine, and I'll say OK. Now I'll let this process for a while. It might take 5-10 minutes, and then we'll come back and keep going from there. Okay, so in the meantime, you can just keep working on your model. OK, so it went ahead and finished. So obviously it takes me a long time too, and it'll take you the time as well. Once it's done, we can scroll out, and we're going to see right here, there's the plan. Okay, that was created by, part of the reason it took so long was I left the furniture in, and I probably shouldn't have left the furniture in. Okay, once we have that, we can go ahead and get rid of the excess. Now, I failed in doing this to draw the rectangle for the view, so I don't know how large it is at this point. I could trim it off arbitrarily, or I can come back to Set View, Plan 02, and from here I can go to my Set Camera, Show Camera, and then look at one of the other views where I should be able to get the 3 targets of the camera. And so let's make exterior view here big for a second. And let me show this as wireframe. Nope. And it undid my show camera. The computer's really challenging for me today. Let me go back to Set Camera, Show Camera. Let's turn that on and off again. Show Camera. All right, so there it is. I'll make sure that I'm snapping to points. And we'll go create a rectangle. And I should have a point somewhere in the center here. Tell you what, let me take this. And I'm just going to hide the block instance temporarily. So I'll type hide. There it is. There's a much easier way of seeing the camera. There to there. Scale 2. So it's the full size of the rectangle. With that there, we can go ahead and hide the rest of the objects except for that rectangle. So we'll select all of these. We will deselect the rectangle, hide, a few others. Essentially, we're down to just the Plan 2 view, and I will then make 2D again with just that rectangle. This won't take very long. The settings are all the same. We'll say OK. And again, it finished very quickly. We can go back to our exterior view, and it conveniently didn't line up the way it was supposed to. Hold on a second. Let me do a make 2D with this and this. Let's go back to exterior view here, make 2D. OK. And it now gave me the curve plus the rectangle. So now I can line up one on top of the other. So let me go ahead and move these. That curve there should match up quite nicely with that curve there, which gives me my rectangle right there that represents my actual view. Does that kind of make sense, how I got that back? I should have done the rectangle to begin with. So now that I have this piece here, we can use this rectangle to trim those pieces which don't matter. We can take these, and let me zoom selected there so we can see it. I'm not able to select everything because some of my layers are locked. See how I can't select those walls? So let's go ahead and figure out which ones are locked. So here's my make 2Ds, all of those. Let's see if we can select sublayer objects. It's still not giving me everything. I'm going to have to expand and see what. So there, that's locked. That's locked. Let's see if there's any others that are locked. No, OK, good. So I should be able to select everything now. No. Hold on a second. This is how you can get yourself into trouble, because I have something locked and I have to go back and find what it is that is locked. There it is. Nope, still don't have everything. Almost. Getting there. So essentially, I'm going through and I have to make absolutely everything unlocked. And I need to make sure that I expand everything. Otherwise, I'll miss a few. And in retrospect, I probably should have unlocked everything before it got distributed out to the Make 2D layers. OK. I think I have everything now. Yep, I do. OK, so let me deselect this. I'm going to work with just this plan that I made. I'm going to move it over to 0.00 before I do the export. So I'm going to move to 0, 0. I hope. Zoom selected. And then I'm going to go to File, Export selected. And this is going to go to an Adobe Illustrator file. Under my options, I'm going to use the scale that I used last time, which were the preserve model scale. Looks like it doesn't want to let me do it. Let me do it from the top view. File, export selected. Let's give it a name here. This is in 229, fall 2016. I'm going to change to Adobe Illustrator. I'll go ahead and click Save. Here we go. Preserve model scale 48 to 1. We'll go ahead and say OK. That then exports this line drawing. OK, so I can go ahead and I can bring that into Illustrator to have a look. So let me open up Illustrator. And I'll go to File and then Open. And I will take a look at the plan that I just created. So there it is. Press Control-. I can adjust my artboard to match up with the outer boundaries of my viewport window, which is there and there. Oh, this needs to get a little shorter. There we go. So that matches up with my viewport in Rhino. And like I said, this time I chose to maintain the source layers. And so I cautioned you about doing it because rather than having 2 layers, we have a bunch of layers. Okay? The advantage here is that if I wanted specific things to be certain line weights, if I wanted, say, my walls to be thicker than my windows or something like that, because they're divided up, it makes it easy. So what I would do on the initial organization here is I would take everything that says visible in it, and I would put all of those into one master layer. So I'll call this visible. And then I'll go through and I'll select, I'm going to hold down the Control key, everything that says visible. OK, so all of those are visible. We'll move them up onto the visible layer, which gives me a visible, everything on that layer is now the visible. Everything here is all going to be the hidden layer. So I'll create a new layer called hidden. And I'll take all of these hidden lines and I'll put them on the hidden layer. And the advantage here is that, yes, it's a little bit more work to start this organization, but I can still select all the hidden lines by clicking right over here where that little dot would be, the little square. Once they're selected, I have all the hidden lines selected. I can come in and change to make those hidden lines gray in color. I can also come up to my stroke properties. I could say that I want it to be 0.25 points, for example, and I want it to be a dashed line of maybe 2 points by 2 points. And now all of the hidden lines are changing at once. But I could go in and select a specific hidden line if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and take all the visible lines instead, and let's change them to be black. Good. Looks like there's a couple that don't want to change. OK, so all of those are now black. Let me select them all. Let me get to my line weight. I'll do maybe 0.75 points, and they're going to be solid lines to start with. So now that I have those, we can zoom in a bit. And we can see, there's certainly a density underneath these two beds that maybe I don't want to have because they're right on top of each other. That's probably part of why this took so darn long to do the export 2D. But you can also see that I'm starting to establish things. There's a few lines that are different colors, right? So I could go in and select same stroke color to select, say, the red line here, and we could change that red line to be a black line, etc. Likewise, the purple, we could select same stroke color, and we could change all of those to be black as well. I could also take all of those and maybe make them 1.5 points, so they're a little bit thicker. We can go through and identify things in the visible spectrum here that are walls. So here's interior walls. Select all of those. Hold down Shift and select the exterior walls. Another set of exterior walls. Okay, so once I have all of those selected, then I could go in and I could change the weight to maybe 1.5 on all of them. I could change the color to be black on all of them. For some reason, it's really not letting me change. I'll have to work on the color. I might have to select them individually. But the point is, because of those layers, I can then work with those. Okay? And I'll come back and I'll tweak those a little bit and clean them up. But we also get to the point where maybe we want that background, the rendered shadows and stuff in the background to see what this looks like. So I'm going to go back to Rhino and make that export. So I'm done with the Make 2Ds, and I can actually come up here to wherever the start of the Make 2D is. We can make the whole Make 2D minimized. Let's minimize the rest of these. So we just don't have quite so much open. There we go. And we can come back to my Plan 2. Let me go back to Set View, Plan 2. I'm going to show so that everything comes back that I made hidden. And now I'm going to start to work with this as a render. And so what we did last time is we used those presets for the clay rendering that we found online under Resources, the V-Ray Quick Rendering Setups. We loaded the clay rendering to create the basic shadows. The problem here is that because this is not just an elevation view, it's a section view, we want to have white applied to everything, but at the same time we want the see-through material on everything that's up above so we can see how the light passes through the building. So it's an added complexity. So I'm going to walk you through this part of it, which is probably the most difficult to understand. We'll do the whole thing again when we move into doing the sections next class. So I'm going to go ST clear all views. Oops. Can't type. ST clear all views. There we go. So we're back to our normal setup here. And with our normal setup, I'm going to turn back on that big plane that I created in the beginning. And let's look at this as a shaded mode. There it is. And I'm going to go ahead and split all of these objects. But before I do that, let me go ahead and select SEL block instance. So I have the block instance, and I'm going to explode. Remember, when I do this process, it breaks apart everything. Okay, so let me SEL block instance again. Those are the windows. We're going to explode them. All right, and we'll SEL block instance. Oops, SEL block instance. Explode. SEL block instance. Explode. These are just getting rid of all the nested blocks, right? So I've gotten rid of all of them. They're live. And now I can go ahead and do a split. So I'm going to type split. Select objects to split. It's going to be all except for the big plane, because we don't want to cut through that. And I'll go ahead and hit Enter. Select cutting objects. It will be that big plane. And we'll go ahead and hit Enter and let it work for a while. Okay, remember the split process can take a while. Because I exploded the blocks, it should go fairly fast. There will, of course, be some failures in the process. Those are generally objects that are all below the plane and don't intersect with the big plane. So it's normal to see a few failures, and we'll confirm it in just a second when it's done. Okay? So once again, I'll let this run for 3 or 4 minutes. It's probably going to take that long, and then I'll call you back and talk to you about the next part of it. OK, so we managed to get through the split process. So I'm going to look at this in the side view right here. We can turn off the big plane. And when I'm looking at it in the side view, I should be able to select everything on the top half rather easily without the bottom half. So we're going to leave the bottom half as is, and we're going to apply the see-through material to the top half of this building. So let me go and look at my materials. I need 2 specific materials to do this. One is going to be see-through, which it doesn't look like I've loaded yet. So let me go ahead and load the material. Remember, this is downloadable from the course website. I also have it under Resources, the V-Ray Materials, Special Materials, and it's going to be see-through. There it is. We'll load that. So I now have see-through available. But I also need that plain transparent material. So I'm going to create a brand new material. Maybe not. I'm going to right-click, say Create Material, Standard. I'm going to call this material Transparent. And I'll say, OK, this is going to be for the glass. And the color is fine. It doesn't matter. But the transparency is going to be white. Therefore, it's going to be completely transparent. So I have transparent and I have see-through. So now I will take everything on the top half here of that plane. So all of this material except for things that are glass. And so I'll come over to my layer stack here and I'll look for things that are glass. So we'll turn off the glass railing. We'll turn off the window glass. We'll turn off this window glass. And that should be all of the glass in this piece. Now I'll go up to my materials, and I'm going to apply the see-through material to this. So we'll look for see-through. There it is. I'm going to right-click and say Apply Material to Selection. Now all of that see-through material has been applied. I'll come back, and I'll select the window glass. So we'll turn on the window glass. Oops. And I will select Objects. We'll turn on this window glass, and I will select Objects. And we will turn on my glass railings, and I will select Objects. Okay, so now I've selected all the glass, but I don't want the glass in the bottom half. So I'll hold down Control, and I'll deselect all of the glass in the bottom half below the section. And I'll come up to Transparent. I'll right-click and say Apply Material to Selection. So now the top half of the building is transparent to the eye, but the windows are completely transparent, so the sun's going to come into the building, which is what I want. We haven't, however, dealt with the bottom half of the building just yet. So if I want just the true white kind of default shadow setup, I'm going to have to create another new material. So I'll go to See Materials. I'll go to Create Material, Standard. This I'm just going to call white. And I'm going to change the color. We'll do a light gray, not quite a white. So it's just a plain basic material. Okay? I'll go ahead and I'll select everything on the lower half of this. All right, so I should have everything below. Looks like I need that piece as well. Now that I have everything below, I'm going to apply this white material, except, once again, for the glass. So we'll turn off the glass railing. We'll turn off the window glass. We'll turn off the window glass here as well. So all of the glass is deselected. We'll go ahead and apply this default white material. So I'll apply Material to Selection. Now that's been applied there. Okay? So I'm not going to worry about changing the glass in the lower half of the building. It can stay glass. That doesn't matter. Okay? So now that I have that part set up, if I go back to my Plan 2 view, and I go to Set View, we'll go to Plan 2. I have my saved view ready to go. I'm ready to render it. The only thing is the settings, the V-Ray settings. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load the default settings that I used last time for the clay rendering. So they should be under Resources, V-Ray. Where did I download? Did I download that into, I think I downloaded it into the actual exercise here. There it is. I'll go ahead and open that. The only thing that this does is under Global Switches, it's set to override all the materials. I don't want that override anymore because I want my see-through material applied. So I uncheck that box. The rest of the settings, the sun, all the rest of it are all set fine. So I have those set. And we'll go ahead and do a test render and see what happens. So I'll click on the render button, and we'll load this up. And assuming that I did it correctly, right, we should get all of the shadows falling into the building as if the rest of the building still existed. Okay, and we can see by the way these lights are coming through that it's turning out reasonably well. There's probably a few things that I need to touch up. I should change the material of the section cut to be like a black or something so we can see what's been cut through. I probably also need to adjust some of the exposures. It looks like it's a little bit light, and so I'm not quite seeing everything that I want to see. Some of the light that's being cast out is coming from the lights that are inside the building. So probably my exposure needs to be adjusted a little bit as well. So in V-Ray options, I'll go to my exposure. So let's go to camera. I had physical camera on, set at 100. Let's try maybe 200. I could also elect to just turn off if I find it confusing. I could come over and turn off all of my lights altogether, and now there's no lights shining on my building at all. It's just the sun. Let me look at my ST00 layer. Let's select the objects from that layer. Let me go to my materials, and let's apply that white to those as well. Oops. Apply material to selection. Now those have the white on them. And then we'll go ahead and render again. I'll also go into my options at this point, and I'm going to set my output to be much larger. Right? We could even go higher than that. We could go like 3,000. Okay. I should unlock, get the exact same view aspect, and then lock again so that this matches up with my Make 2D. Okay, so I have those two pieces matched. I've upped the size here, so that's good. The other thing that we haven't talked a lot about, but I'm going to start to emphasize over the next couple days, is that there is something else called a VFB channel. And if you read your handouts, occasionally I make references to it, but I haven't really talked too much about it. A VFB channel allows us to export other things in addition to the normal rendering. And so we'll cover this a lot more in the next class when we do an actual section rendering because it'll be useful. But it's useful to turn on, besides the RGB color and the alpha, you probably will also want things like the reflection, the shadow, the lighting, and the background. I use render ID and material ID. Z-depth we'll talk about in the perspective section, and there's background as well. So by default, I have these already on. We'll go through and have you turn them on next class, but I kind of want to introduce the concept early. And I'll show you, once we do the render, what those are. So we up the size. And it looks like my guess at the exposure wasn't quite right. So it's turning out much darker than I wanted it to. Let me go ahead and cancel this for just a second. Let me go back to my options. Let me go back to my camera, and we'll go back and try it at maybe 125. Never mind, I think I accidentally turned my sun off. So let's try that one more time. And let's go ahead and render it. I'm actually going to cancel this for just a second. I think maybe I had this set up as the night rendering, and that's why I'm getting the kind of strange results. Try this one more time. Yeah, I think I had two suns on. So you have to kind of work through the intricacies and the tweaks. But we're getting there now in this render. All right, so you can see this. I won't make you sit here and watch it finish during the recording, but I am going to do a couple other things. And one is that you see the upper part of my terrain got cut off because it was cut off with the section. I can manually go back in. Let me go into one of my side views, and I can take my terrain right there, and I can go back and assign it the white color so that it's actually applying the shadow correctly to the ground. So let me go back to my materials, let me go back to white, and I'm going to apply material to selection. So even though that's technically cut, this, when I go back and render, will better show what the shadow looks like on this upper section right over here. All right, so we'll let this go one more time. Oh wait, sorry, I'm doing it in elevation, not in the plan view. Okay, so now I have the rendered plan view there with the lighting. I'll go ahead and save this, and we'll save it onto my flash drive into today's folder. And I'll click Save. And then it's just a matter of dropping that file into Illustrator. So I can go to File and then Place. I can put that clay rendering in behind. Zoom out a little bit, and I can scale this until it fits here. And it looks like my render got slightly off, so we'll have to work through it a little bit. I do want to make sure that that ends up on its own layer. So let me go ahead and pull it completely outside. Create a new layer here. There. We'll pull this completely outside of the current lines. and we'll make sure it's below the lines, so the lines are on top of it. And like I said, it looks like my export wasn't quite right, so let's adjust this down a little bit. And I'm just using the arrow keys to make the adjustment. And it should line up with my drawing. If that's a little bit too strong, remember I can adjust the opacity. I could also adjust the blending mode on it to a little bit less, something like that. Makes the line drawing show through, but we have a pretty good sense of what's happening, where the light is going through the building, etc. Right? So layering it up like this can be a very rich way of showing a plan. And then we can use all of the traditional Illustrator techniques to highlight certain lines and that sort of thing. But this is certainly getting us a long way there toward having a nice quality plan. Okay? So I'll continue with a section drawing next class, so we'll repeat all of the same steps again. The goal is that today you'll try to do a plan. If it doesn't quite work, we'll try it again next class. Remember, you need a plan and elevation, or an elevation and a section, or a plan and a section, right? 2 of the 3 drawings as part of your final. So if something doesn't quite turn out, that's the one to throw out. Make sense? Okay? So I'll stop talking and let you start working, but if you have questions, let me know.